The divorce papers hit the marble counter with a sound like a gunshot. Amara Cole's hands trembled as she stared at the bold black signature, Ethan Cole, scrawled across the bottom with the same cold efficiency he used to sign million-dollar deals. Outside the penthouse windows, rain blurred the Manhattan skyline into watercolor streaks of gray and gold. But inside, everything was crystal clear. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Ethan said, his voice flat as steel. He stood near the door, briefcase in hand, already halfway gone. His expensive suit was immaculate. His wedding ring was already off. In her arms, 6-year-old Liam stirred, fever-hot against her chest. The hospital bracelet on his tiny wrist caught the light, a reminder of the diagnosis that had shattered their world 3 months ago. Dilated cardiomyopathy. Rare. Progressive. Expensive. "He's your son," Amara whispered, her voice breaking on the last word. Ethan's jaw tightened. For a moment, just a flicker, something human crossed his face. Then it vanished, replaced by the mask she'd come to know too well. "And you're making him your excuse to destroy everything I've built. My board, my investors, they all see it. You're a distraction I can't afford." He turned toward the elevator. "Ethan." The doors closed on her plea. On their family. On everything she thought love meant. Behind her, Liam coughed softly. "Mommy? Is Daddy coming back?" Amara closed her eyes against the tears and held her son tighter. She didn't know how to answer. She didn't know how she'd pay for his next treatment. She didn't know how she'd survive tomorrow. But standing there in the ruins of her marriage, something else stirred beneath the heartbreak, something quiet, molten, and unbreakable. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. We love seeing our global family tuning in. What would you have done if this happened to you? Tell us in the comments. 6 months earlier, life had been different. Amara used to wake up to sunlight streaming through silk curtains and Ethan's arm draped across her waist. Back then, he'd kiss her forehead before dawn meetings, whisper promises about family vacations they'd never take, and call her his secret weapon, the woman who made him human when the corporate world tried to turn him into a machine. She'd met him at a tech conference 7 years ago. She was presenting her clean energy prototype. He was the youngest billionaire in the room. While others dismissed her ideas as cute or ambitious, Ethan had seen the genius. Within a year, they were married. Within 2, Liam was born with his mother's bright eyes and his father's stubborn chin. Amara had put her startup dreams on hold to build a home. She told herself it was temporary, that she'd return to her work once Liam was older. But months became years, and her sketches gathered dust while she attended charity galas in designer gowns, smiling beside a man who was slowly becoming a stranger. The cracks started small. Missed birthdays. Cancelled anniversaries. Ethan's eyes glued to his phone during dinner, his mind already in boardrooms she wasn't invited to anymore. Then came Liam's diagnosis. The pediatric cardiologist had explained it with devastating gentleness. Liam's heart was failing. He'd need monitoring, medication, possibly a transplant. The treatment plan was aggressive and astronomically expensive, but they had resources, didn't they? Amara had expected Ethan to hold her, to cry with her, to be there. Instead, he'd taken a call in the hospital hallway. A merger couldn't wait. A crisis in Tokyo. He'd flown out that night with barely a goodbye. Over the following weeks, as Amara juggled specialists and sleepless nights, Ethan grew colder, distant. His board members whispered concerns about his distracted leadership. Investors questioned his focus. And somehow, impossibly, it became her fault. Her need for support. Her son's illness. Her drama. The divorce papers came 3 months after the diagnosis. Now, standing in the apartment she'd been forced to rent with her last bit of savings, a modest 2-bedroom in Brooklyn that smelled like old radiators and new beginnings, Amara unpacked boxes with Liam asleep in the next room. She found it at the bottom of a forgotten crate, her old tablet, covered in dust and outdated patents. Her clean energy designs. The dreams she'd abandoned. Her hands trembled as she powered it on. The screen flickered to life, displaying blueprints for a solar synthesis technology that was years ahead of its time. Outside, the city hummed with possibility. Inside, something dormant began to wake. The email arrived at 2:47 a.m. Amara had been awake anyway, cross-referencing medical bills she couldn't pay with a bank account that screamed in red numbers. Liam's medication alone cost more per month than her rent. The hospital was threatening to reduce his treatment plan. She had maybe 6 weeks before everything collapsed completely. Her laptop pinged. The sender was Dr. Helena Okafor, her former professor from MIT, now the head of the Global Energy Innovation Summit. Amara, I heard about your situation. I'm sorry. But I also remembered your solar synthesis prototype from 2018. We're hosting a pitch competition next month. $500K development grant to the winner, plus exposure to investors who funded billion-dollar projects. I know you haven't worked in years, but if anyone can do this, it's you. Deadline is in 3 weeks. No pressure. But the world needs what you were building. Amara stared at the screen until her vision blurred. 3 weeks. She'd need to update 7-year-old technology, rebuild prototypes with zero budget, prepare a presentation that could compete against funded teams with labs and resources, all while caring for a sick child alone. It was impossible. She looked at the medical bills spread across her tiny kitchen table like a paper graveyard. Then at the closed door where Liam slept, his breathing steady but fragile, a sound she listened for every night like a prayer. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, forwarded by her lawyer. Ethan Cole has requested zero custody and zero visitation rights. He's waiving all parental involvement. Papers finalized. I'm sorry, Amara. She read it twice. Then a third time. The man who'd promised her forever had erased them completely. Not even their son was worth his time. Something inside Amara didn't break, it crystallized. She opened her laptop and pulled up the old files. The designs were rough, outdated, but the core concept was still revolutionary. A solar panel that didn't just capture energy but synthesized it at 3 times the efficiency of anything on the market. If she could modernize it, prove it worked. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She had $1,200 in her account, a dying laptop, and 3 weeks until the deadline. But she also had something Ethan had forgotten she possessed. She was brilliant. She'd always been brilliant. She'd just been too busy being his wife to remember. At 3:15 a.m., she registered for the competition. At 3:20 a.m., she ordered $800 worth of secondhand equipment on credit she didn't have. At 3:30 a.m., Liam appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy? Why are you crying?" She hadn't realized she was. Amara wiped her face and pulled him into her lap, breathing in the scent of his hair, baby shampoo and hope. "I'm not crying, baby. I'm working." On what? She looked at the screen full of equations that could change their lives. A miracle. The next 3 weeks blurred into a fever dream of coffee, code, and calculated desperation. Amara transformed her tiny apartment into a makeshift laboratory. Liam's toy corner became a testing station. The kitchen table disappeared under circuit boards and solar cells salvaged from broken calculators and old garden lights. She worked after Liam slept before he woke, and during every stolen moment while he colored quietly, his small face pale but determined not to complain. "Mommy's building something important," he'd tell his stuffed bear, mimicking her focused expression. It broke her heart and fueled her simultaneously. The prototype fought her at every turn. Equipment malfunctioned. Calculations refused to balance. At one point, she shorted out the apartment's electricity and had to beg the superintendent for one more chance before eviction. But slowly, painfully, the technology began to work. Energy conversion rates climbed from 40% to 65% to an impossible 89%. Dr. Okafor checked in weekly, her voice cautious but encouraging. "The committee is intrigued by your abstract, but Amara, you're competing against teams from Stanford, Cambridge, corporations with million-dollar budgets. Are you sure you're ready?" Amara looked at Liam's hospital bills pinned to her wall like motivation posters. "I don't have a choice." Meanwhile, across the city in a glass tower that scraped the clouds, Ethan Cole's empire was showing cracks. The Singapore deal, the one he'd abandoned his family for, was collapsing. His CFO had been caught in an embezzlement scandal. 2 board members resigned amid whispers of insider trading. The press, once fawning, now circled like sharks scenting blood. Ethan worked 18-hour days, chasing solutions that evaporated like smoke. He told himself the stress was temporary, that he'd made the right choice, that Amara and Liam were distractions he couldn't afford. But late at night, alone in his penthouse, He'd find himself scrolling through old photos on his phone. Amara laughing at their wedding, flowers in her hair. Liam's first steps, arms outstretched toward a father who'd been there then. A family that felt like a dream he'd had once and couldn't quite remember. He'd delete the photos. Then restore them from trash. Then pour another scotch and pretend his hands weren't shaking. His assistant, Marcus, watched with increasing concern. "Sir, you have the charity gala tonight. The one benefiting children's hospitals. Should I send your regrets?" Ethan's jaw tightened. Children's hospitals. Where Liam probably still was, hooked to machines Ethan was no longer paying for. "I'll attend," he said coldly. "Optics matter." Marcus hesitated. "Sir, have you heard anything about Amara? How she's?" "That topic is closed." Ethan's voice could have frozen fire. "Permanently." But that night, dressed in a tuxedo that cost more than Amara's monthly rent, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he'd severed something vital. Not just a marriage. Something in himself. He donated $1 million to the hospital fund. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. And he felt nothing at all. Back in Brooklyn, Amara placed the final component into her prototype. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were clear. Tomorrow was the competition. Tomorrow, everything changed. She kissed Liam's sleeping forehead and whispered a promise into the darkness. "We're going to make it, baby. Mommy's going to save us both." The prototype hummed to life, glowing soft gold in the dim apartment. Outside, the city sparkled with 1,000,000 lights, each one representing someone who'd underestimated her. Soon, they'd all remember her name. The Global Energy Innovation Summit was held in a converted industrial space in Manhattan, all exposed brick, dramatic lighting, and venture capitalists in expensive casual wear. Amara stood backstage in a borrowed blazer, clutching her prototype like a lifeline. Around her, competitors prepped with teams of assistants. Stanford's group had matching lab coats and a holographic presentation. A Berlin-based corporation wheeled an equipment that cost more than her entire life savings. She had a 7-year-old design, a prototype built from salvaged parts, and exactly 4 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. Amara Cole. A production assistant checked her clipboard. "You're up in 5. Amara's heart hammered. In the audience, Dr. Okafor had secured a seat. Liam was with a neighbor. She'd promised him ice cream if he was good, a promise she couldn't afford but made anyway. She closed her eyes, steadied her breathing, and remembered the night Ethan had walked out. The sound of those elevator doors closing. The weight of Liam in her arms. "You're a distraction I can't afford. Let them see what a distraction can do," she whispered. The stage lights were blinding. 300 faces stared up at her, investors, scientists, journalists. She could feel their skepticism like humidity. The unknown woman from Brooklyn with the impossible claims. Amara began to speak. Her voice shook for the first 3 sentences, then steadied into something stronger. She explained the technology not with jargon but with vision, how her solar synthesis panels could power hospitals in developing nations, reduce carbon emissions by 40%, make clean energy accessible to communities corporations had written off as unprofitable. "This isn't just about efficiency," she said, her eyes blazing. "It's about who gets to have power. Literally and figuratively." Then she activated the prototype. The room fell silent as the device hummed to life, its energy conversion rate displaying on the screen behind her, 91%. Then 92%. Climbing higher than any existing technology on the market. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Dr. Okafor was grinning. Amara fielded questions with precision, her years of dormant expertise flooding back like muscle memory. She was no longer the abandoned wife, the struggling mother. She was the engineer who'd been too brilliant for Ethan to see. When she left the stage, 3 investors were waiting. But the real shock came 2 hours later, during the networking reception. Amara was nursing cheap wine and wondering if she'd actually pulled it off when Dr. Okafor appeared, her face unreadable. "Helena? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Her professor's voice was strange. "Everything's. Amara, I just got a call from the judging committee. And then another from Titan Energy Corporation. And then," she paused, laughing in disbelief. "Amara, they don't want to give you the grant." Amara's heart sank. What? They want to skip the grant entirely. Titan Energy wants to license your technology globally. They're offering an exclusive development and distribution contract. Dr. Okafor grabbed her shoulders. Amara. They're offering $50 billion. The room tilted. That's not possible. It's happening. They saw what this could do, the scalability, the applications, the market disruption. They want to move immediately. There's a representative here who wants to meet with you right now. Amara's hands went numb. $50 billion. The number was incomprehensible. Yesterday she couldn't pay for groceries. Today, Ms. Cole. She turned. A woman in an immaculate suit extended her hand. I'm Jennifer Zhao, VP of Global Partnerships at Titan Energy. We'd like to discuss terms immediately. We have a team of lawyers ready, and we're prepared to move very, very fast. This technology changes everything. The conversation that followed happened in a blur. Contracts. Percentages. Rights and royalties and numbers that made Amara's head spin. She called her lawyer, the same one who'd handled her divorce, and listened to him nearly weep with joy over the phone. At 11:47 p.m., in a conference room that smelled like leather and ambition, Amara Cole signed the contract. At 11:48 p.m., she became one of the wealthiest women in the world. At 11:49 p.m., she walked outside into the Manhattan night, looked up at the skyline, and finally, let herself breathe. Somewhere in one of those towers, Ethan was probably still working. Still chasing. Still blind. He had no idea what was coming. Did you see that twist coming? Comment yes or no below. Ethan Cole saw her face on every screen in Times Square. He'd been walking to an emergency board meeting, another crisis, another fire to extinguish, when the world stopped. 50-foot-tall digital billboards blazed with her image, Amara, radiant in a white power suit, standing before a backdrop of solar panels that stretched toward a golden sky. Amara Cole, the woman powering the future. $50 billion deal shakes global energy market. From unknown to unstoppable, the Amara Cole story. Ethan stood frozen on the sidewalk while thousands of people flowed around him like water around a stone. His phone buzzed incessantly, texts from board members, Marcus, colleagues, but he couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. That was his Amara. His wife. The woman he'd. Ex-wife. The woman he'd divorced. His hands shook as he scrolled through news articles that had exploded across every major outlet in the last 12 hours. Bloomberg. Forbes. The Wall Street Journal. They all told the same impossible story. Amara Cole, single mother and tech visionary, had emerged from obscurity to sign the largest clean energy contract in history. Titan Energy was calling her technology revolutionary. Governments were already negotiating for access. Her estimated net worth had skyrocketed overnight to surpass his own. There were photos of her at the summit. Confident. Brilliant. Alive in a way he hadn't seen in years. And in every article, the same haunting detail. Ms. Cole credits her 6-year-old son as her inspiration, stating, "I built this for every parent who's been told they can't do both. Love their child and change the world. We can. We do. We will." Liam. Their son. The boy he'd walked away from. Ethan made it to his office on autopilot. The board meeting was chaos. The Singapore deal had officially collapsed, taking $3 billion in projected revenue with it. 2 more investors were pulling out. The company's stock had dropped 18% in a week. But Ethan barely heard any of it. He stared at his phone, at a photo of Amara smiling beside Dr. Helena Okafor, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine, soul-crushing regret. Ethan. His board chair's voice cut through the fog. Are you even listening? We need a response to the shareholders. We need a strategy. I need to go. Ethan stood abruptly. Excuse me. I need to, his voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. I need to handle something personal. Personal. The chair's face reddened. Your company is hemorrhaging value and you want to handle something personal? This is exactly the problem, Ethan. This is why we're here. You're distracted. Unfocused. Ever since that divorce. Don't. Ethan's voice was dangerous. Don't finish that sentence. He left the boardroom to a chorus of protests and walked to his penthouse like a man underwater. The space that had once represented success now felt like a mausoleum, all marble and glass and suffocating silence. He poured a scotch. Then another. Then stopped pretending to use a glass. His phone kept buzzing. News alerts. His mother calling. Marcus asking if he was okay. He ignored all of it until one notification made his blood freeze. Amara Cole's first major interview, How Heartbreak Built My Empire. He clicked the video. Amara sat across from a journalist, poised and powerful, nothing like the broken woman he'd left. You went through a difficult divorce during this period, the interviewer said gently. Some say that hardship fueled your success. How do you respond? Amara's smile was sad but strong. I respond by saying that my ex-husband taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. When he left me and our sick son, I had two choices, collapse or build something that could never be taken away. I chose to build. Do you have any message for him now? Amara looked directly into the camera. For a moment, Ethan could swear she was looking right at him. I hope he finds what he's looking for. I already have. The bottle slipped from Ethan's hand, shattering across imported Italian tile. He'd thrown away a diamond to chase fool's gold. He'd abandoned the only real thing in his life, his family, for an empire that was crumbling in his hands. And the woman he'd called a distraction had just become the most powerful force in their industry. Ethan collapsed onto his couch, surrounded by broken glass and broken choices, and finally understood what he'd lost. Outside, the city glittered with indifference. Somewhere in it, his son was sleeping. His ex-wife was building a future. And Ethan Cole, billionaire, fool and failure, was utterly, completely alone. 3 weeks after the contract signing, Amara stood in her new office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, and realized she felt nothing. The success was real. The money was real. Her company, Revolt Energy, had headquarters in 12 countries now. She'd hired a team of 50 brilliant minds. Her technology was being installed in hospitals, schools, and communities that had lived in darkness for generations. But standing there in her designer suit, phone buzzing with congratulations from people who'd ignored her a month ago, Amara felt empty. She'd won. She'd proven everyone wrong. She'd built an empire from nothing. So why did it feel hollow? Her assistant knocked softly. Ms. Cole? Your car is here. Liam's school called. He's ready for pickup. Liam. The name jolted her back to earth. Amara grabbed her bag and rushed out, suddenly desperate to see her son. She'd been so consumed with meetings, launches, and interviews that she'd barely seen him awake in days. Her mother had been staying with them, helping, but when did I become the person who's too busy for my child? The thought hit her like ice water. She found Liam in the after-school program, sitting alone with a picture book. While other children played, he traced the illustrations with one finger, his small face serious. He looked tired. When had he gotten so pale? Baby. Amara knelt beside him, and his face transformed with joy. Mommy. You came. Of course I came. I'll always come. But even as she said it, guilt twisted in her chest. How many times this week had she sent the nanny instead? In the car ride home, Liam was quiet. Then, Mommy? Are you going to leave me too? Amara's heart stopped. What? Baby, no. Never. Why would you ask that? Because you're important now. Like Daddy was. And important people always leave. His voice was matter-of-fact, as if he'd worked out a simple equation. Amara pulled the car over, trembling. She unbuckled and pulled Liam into her lap, holding him tight. Listen to me. Listen. I built all of this for you. Every single thing, the company, the money, the success, it's all so you'd never have to worry again. So I could afford your medicine. So you'd always be safe. But I just want you, Mommy. Liam's small hands gripped her jacket. I don't care about the big office. I liked our small apartment. You were there. The words shattered something inside her. That night, after Liam fell asleep, Amara sat in her new luxury apartment, the penthouse she'd bought to prove she'd made it, and looked at the life she'd built. The awards on the wall. The contracts stacked on her desk. The calendar full of obligations. She'd become what she'd hated. Not Ethan exactly, but close enough to terrify her. She'd won the war but was losing the one battle that actually mattered. Amara made 3 phone calls. The first was to her assistant, "Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Family time. Non-negotiable." The second was to her board, "I'm implementing new company policy. Flexible hours. Remote work options. Parental leave that doesn't punish parents for being present. We're proving you can build an empire and still show up for your kids." The third call she stared at for 20 minutes before making. She dialed Dr. Patel, Liam's cardiologist. "Dr. Patel, it's Amara Cole. I need to schedule Liam's full treatment plan. Whatever he needs. Cost is no longer a factor." The doctor's relief was audible. "Ms. Cole, that's wonderful news. There's a new procedure, experimental but promising. With proper treatment, Liam's prognosis could improve significantly." After she hung up, Amara walked to Liam's room and watched him sleep. His chest rose and fell steadily, his face peaceful in dreams she hoped were filled with joy. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "Mommy forgot what she was fighting for. But I remember now." Success without purpose was just noise. Empire without love was just loneliness. She'd proven she could do anything. Now she'd prove she could do it right. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan sat in his office at 3 a.m., staring at his phone. He'd typed and deleted the same message 17 times. "Amara, I'm sorry. Can we talk?" But what could he possibly say? That he'd been wrong? That he'd thrown away everything that mattered? That he saw her face everywhere and felt like he was suffocating? His company was stabilizing barely, but it no longer meant anything. The victory felt like ashes. For the first time in his life, Ethan Cole understood that some mistakes couldn't be fixed with money or power or strategy. Some things, once broken, stayed broken. Unless. He looked at the message one more time. His thumb hovered over send. Then deleted it. She didn't need his apology. She didn't need anything from him anymore. But maybe, just maybe, he needed to give it anyway. Not for forgiveness. Not for redemption. But because some truths needed to be spoken, even into silence. The confrontation happened at the one place neither of them expected, Liam's hospital. Amara was there for Liam's pre-procedure consultation, the experimental treatment that could strengthen his heart, give him a real future. She sat in the waiting room, her hand clasped around Liam's, when she felt the air change. She looked up. Ethan stood in the doorway, and he looked like a man who'd been wandering in the desert. His suit was rumpled. His eyes were hollow. In his hands, he clutched a small gift bag, something with superheroes on it. Their eyes met, and the world contracted to just that moment. "What are you doing here?" Amara's voice was ice, but her heart hammered traitorously. Ethan's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "I heard about the procedure. I needed to see him." "Now? You need to see him now." Amara stood, fury blazing through her veins. Not when he was diagnosed. Not when he was scared and asking for his father. Not when we had nothing and needed everything. Now? When the cameras might be watching. When it's convenient for your image rehabilitation. "Amara, please." "No." She stepped between him and Liam, a mother wolf protecting her cub. "You don't get to do this. You signed away your rights. You called us a distraction. You walked away when your son needed you most." "I know." Ethan's words came out broken. "I know what I did. I know what I am. I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm not even here for me. His eyes found Liam, who watched with wide, uncertain eyes. "I wanted him to know that I'm sorry. That the worst mistake of my life was leaving you both." "Daddy." Liam's small voice cut through the tension. Ethan's composure shattered. Tears streamed down his face, the first emotion Amara had seen from him in over a year. "Hey, buddy." "Yeah, it's me." "Are you here to stay?" The question was so full of fragile hope it hurt to hear. Amara watched Ethan struggle with the answer. Watched him realize there was no right response. That some damage couldn't be undone with a single gesture. "I'm here right now," Ethan said finally, honestly. And I'm sorry I wasn't before. Dr. Patel appeared, breaking the moment. Ms. Cole? We're ready for Liam. Amara knelt beside her son, smoothing his hair. You ready, brave boy? Liam nodded, but his eyes kept darting to Ethan. Can Daddy wait with you? The question speared through Amara. She wanted to say no. Wanted to protect herself and Liam from future disappointment. But looking at her son's face, at the desperate need for the father who'd abandoned him, she couldn't. If that's what you want, she said softly. The procedure took 3 hours. Amara and Ethan sat in the waiting room in suffocating silence until Ethan finally spoke. I saw your interview. Good for you. You were right. About everything. His voice was raw. I thought success meant sacrificing everything else. I thought showing weakness would destroy me. I thought, he laughed bitterly. I thought I was building something that mattered. But you? You built something that actually changes things. And you did it while being the parent I should have been. Amara's hands clenched in her lap. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to hear it. Because our son deserves a father who can admit when he's catastrophically wrong. Ethan turned to face her fully. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking for another chance. I burned that bridge to ash. But I am asking, begging, to be part of Liam's life again. Not as the father who abandoned him, but as someone trying to earn the title back. One day at a time. You really think you can just walk back in? Sign some papers, give him false hope, and then disappear when it gets hard again? No. Ethan's voice was steady now. I think it'll be the hardest thing I've ever done. I think I don't deserve it. But I also think that boy in there deserves a father who fights for him. Even if it takes the rest of my life to prove I can be that person. Amara studied him, really looked at him for the first time in months. The arrogance was gone. The cold certainty had cracked open to reveal something human and hurting underneath. I don't trust you, she said finally. I know. And I don't need you. Not anymore. Not financially, not emotionally, not in any way. I know that too. But Liam needs his father. The real version. Not the corporate ghost who sends checks and misses birthdays. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. So here's what's going to happen. You show up. Consistently. You put in the work. You prove, with actions, not words, that you've changed. And maybe, you get to be part of his life again. But the second you hurt him? The second you make him feel like he's not enough? I will use every resource I have to make sure you never get near him again. Are we clear? Crystal. Dr. Patel emerged, smiling. He did beautifully. You can see him now. They walked to the recovery room together, not as a family, but as two people trying to do right by the child they'd created. Liam was drowsy but smiling, reaching for both of them with his small hands. I was so brave, he mumbled. The bravest, Amara whispered, kissing his forehead. Ethan hung back, uncertain, until Liam's hand found his. You stayed. I stayed, Ethan confirmed, his voice thick. And I'll keep staying, buddy. As long as you'll let me. As Liam drifted back to sleep, Amara looked at Ethan across their son's hospital bed. There was no romance left between them. No second chances at the life they'd lost. But maybe, just maybe, there was a chance at something different. Something honest. Not a fairy tale ending. But a real one. 6 months later, the world looked different. Amara stood on stage at the Revolt Energy Annual Summit, addressing a crowd of thousands. Behind her, a massive screen displayed images of solar farms in Kenya, community centers in rural India, hospitals in South America, all powered by the technology she'd built from heartbreak and determination. Energy isn't just about electricity, she told the audience, her voice steady and strong. It's about power in every sense of the word. The power to choose your future. The power to lift your community. The power to say, I will not be broken by what tried to break me. The applause was thunderous, but Amara's eyes found the back of the auditorium, where Liam sat beside her mother. He was healthier now, the treatment had worked beyond anyone's expectations. His smile was bright, his energy boundless. He waved at her with both hands, and she waved back, her heart full. Beside Liam sat Ethan. Not as her husband. Not as a partner, but as a father who'd shown up to every medical appointment for 6 months straight. Who'd learned to braid hair through YouTube tutorials when Liam asked. Who'd built Lego sets at 2 a.m. and attended every school play, sitting in the back row with tears streaming down his face because he finally understood what he'd almost lost forever. He wasn't forgiven, not completely. Trust was a slow rebuild, earned in minutes and hours, not grand gestures. But he was trying. And for Liam's sake, that was enough. After the summit, Amara found them in the lobby. Liam ran to her, and she scooped him up despite him getting too big for it. "Mommy, you were amazing." Everyone was clapping so loud. "That's because your mommy is changing the world," Ethan said softly. There was no jealousy in his voice anymore. Only genuine admiration tinged with regret for the years he'd failed to see it. "We're changing the world," Amara corrected, setting Liam down. "All of us. One choice at a time." Ethan nodded. "Listen, I know you have that gala tonight, so I'll take Liam for the evening. We've got plans, pizza, that new animated movie he's been talking about, and I promise. Bedtime at 8:30 sharp." 8:30? He's been lobbying for 9. "He told me 8, Ethan said with mock seriousness. Then to Liam, "You little negotiator." Liam giggled, grabbing both their hands. For just a moment, they stood there, a fractured family finding a new shape. Not the one they'd started with, but honest. Real. "Thank you," Amara said quietly to Ethan. "For showing up." "Thank you for letting me," he replied. "I know I don't deserve." "Stop." She held up a hand. "We're not doing the apology loop anymore. You're here. You're trying. That's what matters." As Ethan left with Liam, Amara's phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Okafor. "Dinner tonight? Want to discuss the fellowship program for young women in STEM. You're inspiring a generation, Amara." Amara smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. Let's build something." That night at the gala, Amara was approached by a young woman, early 20s, nervous, clutching a tablet with design sketches. "Ms. Cole? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say, I was about to give up on my engineering degree. Then I heard your story. About building a billion-dollar company while raising your son alone. You made me believe I could do both. So I'm staying. And I'm going to build something that matters too." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. "What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Okonkwo." "Maya, let me give you some advice my professor once gave me. The world will tell you that you have to choose between passion and family, between success and love, between being powerful and being present. That's a lie. You can be all of it. You just have to be brave enough to build it your way." She handed Maya her card. "Email me your designs. Revolt is always looking for brilliant minds." As Maya walked away, glowing with possibility, Amara looked around the gala, at the life she'd built not despite her pain, but through it. At the empire that bore her name and values. At the future she'd created where women didn't have to shrink themselves to fit into spaces built by others. Her phone buzzed with a photo from Ethan, Liam asleep on his shoulder, ice cream on both their faces, the movie credits rolling in the background. The caption read, "Best night of my life. Thank you for trusting me with him." Amara didn't respond with words. Just a single heart emoji. Some stories didn't end with the heroine taking back the man who'd broken her. Some stories ended with her realizing she'd never needed saving in the first place. She'd been the hero all along. And the best revenge? It wasn't revenge at all. It was becoming so phenomenally, undeniably successful that the person who'd underestimated you could only watch in awe and regret while you built a legacy that would outlast you both. Amara Cole had been discarded, dismissed, and destroyed. And she'd turned it all into diamonds. If this story touched you, like and subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. What lesson hit you hardest? Was it Amara's strength? Ethan's regret? The power of second chances? Drop a comment and let us know which moment made you feel something real. And if you're going through your own storm right now, remember Amara's story. Your breakdown might just be your breakthrough. We believe in you. Thank you for experiencing this journey with us. You are part of our global storytelling family. Until the next story, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, you're more powerful than anyone who ever underestimated you.